الله أكبر
Friends of Islam, this time the Islamic faith is back before you to share Islamic information. I hope it inspires your activities today. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and activate the bell button notifications so you don't miss the latest news from the Islamic Faith channel. Who would have thought that hundreds of Americans would gather in the heart of New York City, not for a concert or demonstration, but for Tarawih prayers? This extraordinary atmosphere even moved Donald Trump. This year, the atmosphere of Ramadan in New York felt so special and meaningful. A view that can usually only be found in Muslim-majority countries was now seen in the heart of the city, famous for its skyscrapers. Thousands of Muslims gathered on the streets of Manhattan, precisely near Times Square, to perform Tarawih prayers together. This sight was extraordinary and rare in a country known for its religious and cultural diversity. The streets that were usually filled with fast-moving vehicles, that night turned into a sea of people who were solemnly praying. A solemn and peaceful atmosphere filled the air, with the recitation of the holy verses of the Quran echoing between the tall buildings. Interestingly, it was not only Muslims who attended. Several curious non-Muslims were also seen standing around the area, watching with curiosity and awe. Some of them even captured the moment with their mobile phones, while others asked friends or officers about the meaning of the ongoing prayer. A New Yorker named Michael, who happened to be passing by the area, expressed his amazement. "I've lived in this city for over 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this before. It's something so extraordinary. To see so many people gathered in such a peaceful atmosphere," he said. Many people were moved to see how American Muslims could worship comfortably in the middle of a busy city. Moreover, after years of Muslims in America having faced various challenges and negative prejudices, however, that night, they were able to show the world that Islam is a religion full of peace and compassion. This Tarawih Akbar is not just a prayer, but also a symbol of unity, tolerance, and harmony amidst diversity. The Muslim community in New York has worked hard to get permission from the local government to use the streets as a place of worship. This is certainly not an easy matter, considering that New York's traffic is one of the busiest in the world. However, with good communication and a positive approach, the authorities finally gave permission. This shows that tolerance and diversity are truly upheld in this country. I thought I could only feel this kind of atmosphere in my hometown, but today in New York, I feel like I'm in Cairo. This is proof that Islam can thrive anywhere, as long as there is a strong community and high solidarity, said Ahmed with teary eyes. Not only that, several converts also took part in the Tarawih prayer. One of them was a woman named Sarah, who had just converted to Islam.
Okay, so repeat after me, okay? Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad abduhu wa rasul Allah. Now repeat in English.
Last year, she said that this moment was very memorable for her. "I feel so honored to be able to feel togetherness with such a large number of fellow believers in America. This is an amazing experience, and I can't even express it in words," she said. In addition to being a place of worship, this Tarawih prayer moment is also an extraordinary means of preaching. Many non-Muslims are finally interested in learning more about Islam after seeing for themselves how Muslims worship with full calm and peace. A man named Jonathan, who admitted to not having a strong religious background, said that he was deeply touched to see how Muslims were so united in carrying out their worship. "I can feel such positive energy here. I want to learn more about Islam," he said. This moment also proved that Ramadan is not only about holding back hunger and thirst, but also about togetherness and solidarity. Amidst the hustle and bustle of big city life like New York, Muslims managed to create an atmosphere full of peace and tranquility. The event ended peacefully, without any disturbances or negative incidents. Instead, many people went home with hearts full of happiness and hope. They felt that this was a big step towards better understanding and tolerance in America. Many hope that moments of togetherness like this will continue to occur in the future. The Tarawih prayer in New York is truly real proof that Islam is part of America, and Muslims have the right to carry out their worship freely without fear or pressure. This is not only a victory for Muslims, but also a victory for the principle of religious freedom that is upheld in this country. With events like this, it is hoped that more people will be able to understand Islam in a more positive way. Who knows, in the future, we will see more cities in the world opening their way for Muslims to worship together peacefully. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, who is known for his immigration policies and views on Muslims, is back in the spotlight after news emerged that he was moved to see hundreds of Muslims gathering for Tarawih prayers in the middle of New York City. This moment was not only surprising, but also raised a big question. Is Trump really starting to understand the existence of Muslims in America? During his leadership, Trump has often been associated with policies that are considered controversial towards Muslims. One of the most famous is the Muslim bond policy, which is a ban on citizens from several Muslim-majority countries entering the United States. This decision drew major protests, both at home and abroad, because it was considered discriminatory and contrary to the values of religious freedom that are upheld by the United States. However, the situation now seems different. When footage of the Tarawih prayer in New York spread widely on social media and went viral, several sources claimed that Trump was touched by what he saw. A journalist close to Trump's political circle said that the former U.S. president showed a different expression than usual when he saw the footage. He paused for a moment and seemed to think deeply. "This is a reaction that I rarely see from him," said the source. According to media reports, Trump said that he never expected to see such a scene. In America, seeing thousands of Muslims praying peacefully in the heart of a city that never sleeps is something extraordinary for him. Trump reportedly expressed his amazement at how the Muslim community there is so strong and united. "This is a sight that I'm not used to seeing. There's something interesting here, and this is something we should pay attention to," Trump said in a closed meeting, according to one of the sources who attended. Not only that, several officials close to Trump also said that this moment made him reflect on diversity in America. Although he has been known for his harsh rhetoric against Muslim immigrants, this time he seemed more accepting and understanding that Muslims also have a place in this country. One factor that has influenced this change is the increasing number of Muslim voters in America. In the last election, the Muslim American community showed quite high participation, and many of them voted based on pro-diversity policies. As a politician who is very sensitive to public opinion, Trump may have begun to realize that taking a more open stance towards Muslims could be a strategic move to reach more voters. Moreover, in recent years, the image of Islam in America has shifted positively, with more Muslims playing an active role in various fields, including politics, business, and culture. However, not everyone believes that Trump's change of attitude is truly sincere. Some political analysts argue that this could be just part of a political strategy to gain more support. Ahead of the upcoming election, some argue that Trump is trying to gain sympathy from groups that he has previously ignored or even criticized. Trump is a very smart businessman and politician. If he sees an opportunity to gain support from a certain group, he will not hesitate to adjust his attitude, said a political observer in Washington. On the other hand, there are also those who argue that this moment really touches Trump's emotional side. He may have never really understood how the Muslim community lived in America, and seeing them peacefully praying in a city as big as New York felt something different. A former White House advisor who worked with Trump said the former president actually had a softer side that was rarely seen in public. "He's always been known as a tough guy who doesn't show emotion, but in certain situations, he can be very reflective and emotional," he said. Within days of the Tarawih moment in New York going viral, conservative media outlets that usually support Trump also began to change the tone of their reporting. If previously they often associated Islam with negative issues, this time they highlighted how the Muslim community managed to show their peaceful side and solidarity. One of the hosts on Fox News even stated that what happened in New York was a real example of how diversity can live harmoniously in America. I never thought I would see thousands of Muslims praying in the middle of the city without any disturbance or conflict. It shows that America is a place for everyone, regardless of their religion or background, he said. However, there are still some who are skeptical about this moment. Some on the American right have expressed their disapproval of the use of public space for Muslim worship, arguing that it could set an unwelcome precedent for the future. Amid the debate, however, one thing is for sure: New York has changed the way many view Islam in America, including perhaps Trump himself. Will this be a turning point in Trump's relationship with the Muslim community, or just a momentary reaction with no lasting impact? Only time will tell. What is clear is that for many Muslim Americans, this moment represents a small victory in their struggle to be recognized and accepted as part of a larger society. And if a figure like Donald Trump can be moved by this sight, then perhaps a bigger change is on the way. The extraordinary moment of thousands of Muslim Americans gathering for the Tarawih prayer in the middle of New York City is not only an inspiring sight, but also a living proof that diversity and tolerance are alive in America. But the moment also had a profound impact on the Muslim community in the United States and around the world. It was more than just another prayer service. It was a symbol of awakening, acceptance, and a changing narrative about Islam in a country that has had a long history of debating the identity of Muslims in America. I grew up feeling like being Muslim in America meant being on guard, always having to prove that we were part of this country and good citizens. But seeing thousands of people praying peacefully in downtown New York, I felt more proud than ever to be a Muslim American, she said, her eyes welling up. Many Muslim families also felt more comfortable expressing their identity after seeing that there was such support for religious freedom in this country. Before the Tarawih prayer in Times Square, they might have wondered, can we be proud of who we are? Are we truly accepted? But after that night, many saw a new hope. They felt that they could live in America without fear and without having to hide who they were. The impact of this moment was felt not only by the Muslim American community, but also by the wider community. The media, which had often portrayed Islam in a negative light, is now beginning to acknowledge the real diversity and contributions of Muslims to building a more inclusive America. Now the media is changing its narrative. CNN, for example, ran a special feature on how the Muslim community in America is growing and contributing to society. They featured interviews with Muslim community leaders who spoke about how Islam teaches peace and togetherness. A journalist from the New York Times wrote in his op-ed, "What's happening in New York is not just about Muslims, it's about America. It's proof that we are a country that truly values religious freedom. When thousands of Muslims can pray peacefully in the heart of our city, it shows that we are moving toward a more inclusive future." On social media, many non-Muslims expressed their admiration. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook were filled with positive comments. Some even said they were interested in learning more about Islam after seeing how Muslims performed their prayers so peacefully and solemnly. A New Yorker named Jessica wrote on Twitter, "I never knew much about Islam before, but after seeing how Muslims worship in the middle of the city, I felt like learning more. They are so peaceful and together. And it really changed my perspective." However, as with any major change, not everyone has responded positively. Some conservatives and right-wing groups remain uneasy about the increased visibility of Muslims in America. They argue that the use of public space for worship can be controversial and raise questions about the boundaries between religion and state. One right-wing figure criticized the event, saying, "If we allow one religious group to use the streets for worship, then we have to be prepared for similar demands from other groups. We must be careful to maintain a balance between religious freedom and public order." However, amid the criticism that emerged, the response from the New York City government was very clear. This event was considered a real demonstration of the principle of religious freedom, which is one of the main pillars of the United States. The mayor of New York even issued an official statement supporting the event, saying, "As long as people obey the rules and maintain order, everyone has the right to practice their beliefs freely." From a political perspective, this moment also had a significant impact. Some Democrats saw this as an opportunity to strengthen ties with the Muslim community, which is growing in number in America. They increasingly attended events that showed open support for religious freedom and diversity. Meanwhile, for the Republican Party, Trump's change in attitude towards Muslims if it really happens, could be a determining factor in their campaign strategy. If Trump begins to soften his views on Islam, then this could be a signal that the Republican Party will also follow his lead to attract more voters from Muslim communities and other minorities. However, the question remains, is this just a momentary reaction or the beginning of a bigger change? Some social and political observers argue that moments like this should continue to be encouraged so that American Muslims are increasingly recognized in various aspects of social and political life. With more Muslims active in business, media, and government, this community is starting to have a stronger voice in determining the direction of state policy. This administration is proof that the Muslim community is not only growing in number, but also in their influence and involvement in building a better America. At the international level, news about the Tarawih prayer in New York also received attention from various countries. Media from the Middle East, Europe, and the United States highlighted how Muslims in America can practice their religion peacefully, despite living in a country with a non-Muslim majority. A British academic wrote in an article, "What we see in New York is evidence that Islam and the West can live side by side. This is a positive signal for the world, especially amidst increasing tensions between religions and cultures." Ultimately, this moment is not just about one night in New York, but part of a major shift in the way the world views Islam and Muslims in America. They are truly part of the country they call home. Amazing, isn't it? Will this be the beginning of a stronger interfaith relationship around the world? And more interestingly, will this be a sign of a change in Trump's attitude toward Islam, or just a coincidence? Time will tell. Whether Trump's change of heart or a political strategy, one thing is for sure. The Tarawih prayer in New York has opened many people's eyes. It's not just about worship, but also about how Muslim Americans are becoming more confident in expressing their identity in public. In the days following the event, Muslim organizations in America began holding discussions and open forums to discuss the role of Muslims in society. They highlighted how events like this can strengthen interfaith relationships and build bridges of understanding with other communities. One prominent Muslim American, Imam Omar Suleiman, said in an interview, "We've seen how a simple moment like praying in a public place can change people's perceptions of Islam. It shows that we have to continue to be present, continue to contribute, and continue to build dialogue with other communities." Meanwhile, Muslim groups in other cities are considering holding similar events. They saw how the Tarawih prayers in New York had become a symbol of the strength of the Muslim community, not only in America, but around the world. Of course, challenges remain. There are still many skeptics and prejudices to overcome. However, this moment proves that with a peaceful and inclusive approach, change can happen. Looking ahead, the question is, will this be a momentum that continues? Will the Muslim community in America gain greater space and recognition? What is clear is that that night in New York left a deep impression on many people, and perhaps this is just the beginning of something bigger. After the great Tarawih prayer event in New York, the impact began to be felt in various levels of society, not only in the United States, but also in various other countries that highlighted how Muslims can carry out their worship peacefully in the middle of such a busy city. Major media outlets began to change their narrative about Islam. If previously Islam was often associated with negative issues, now coverage began to focus on diversity, peace, and the contribution of the Muslim community in American society. A columnist for the Washington Post wrote, "This moment proves that Muslims are an integral part of America. They are not just a small, hidden community, but an active, peaceful, and contributing group to social, economic, and political life." On the other hand, many non-Muslims expressed their admiration. Some even began to learn more about Islam, drawn by the serenity and unity they saw at the Tarawih prayer in Times Square. In addition, some Islamic organizations in America saw this as an opportunity to further advocate for their rights. They began to apply for more permits for religious events in public spaces and to strengthen their dialogue with the government and the wider community. Despite the positive developments, there are still major challenges ahead. Some conservative groups continue to oppose the use of public spaces for Muslim worship, viewing it as setting a dangerous precedent. However, the Muslim community in America is growing in confidence. They feel that this moment is a turning point, not just for them, but also for the world's perception of Islam. That night in New York may have been just one night, but its impact will be felt for a long time. Many people finally decided to convert to Islam after seeing thousands of worshippers performing the Tarawih prayer so orderly and solemnly. They were touched by one simple but meaningful thing, a word from Rapat Kansaf, a prayer line that immediately forms neatly without having to touch each worshipper one by one. For those who witnessed it, this was not just a line, but a symbol of order, unity, and submission to the rules given by Islam. They realized that only in Islam, everything is arranged so easily, harmoniously, and meaningfully. A man who initially only watched from a distance expressed his amazement. I have never seen a group of people who are so compact and orderly without needing much instruction. It's as if there is something that connects them all automatically. It's amazing. This phenomenon further proves that Islam is not just a religion, but also a system of life that brings peace and order to anyone who wants to learn more about it. As more and more people are interested in getting to know Islam, some of them are starting to find out more about the teachings of this religion. Not a few finally said the Shahada after feeling the real peace and togetherness in the Tarawih prayer. A woman named Sarah, who previously did not have a strong religious background, admitted that this moment changed her perspective. I always thought that religion was complicated and full of rules that were difficult to follow. But when I saw how Muslims worship so neatly, orderly, and peacefully, I realized that this is not about burdensome rules, but about order that brings peace. That's what made me want to be a part of this, she said with teary eyes after saying the Shahada. Not only Sarah, many others felt the same way. They were touched by the way Islam teaches brotherhood, how Muslims, regardless of race or background, can stand side by side in one line, worshiping the same God. Another convert, Jonathan, an American man who has long been searching for the meaning of life, said, "I have attended many religious events of various faiths, but I have never seen anything so simple yet profound. One command, organize the rows, can make thousands of people stand in perfect harmony." It made me think, if in such a small thing Islam can create order and tranquility, what about other teachings? This incident not only left a deep impression on those who witnessed it, but also became proof that Islam is a religion that prioritizes simplicity, togetherness, and peace. And in the midst of the hustle and bustle of a city as big as New York, the light of Islam continues to shine, attracting hearts that are seeking the truth. With the presence of Tarawih prayers in New York City, the development of Islam in the United States is increasingly rapid and gaining widespread attention. This event is not only a moment of worship for Muslims, but also a symbol that Islam is increasingly being accepted and growing in Uncle Sam's country. For years, the Muslim community in America has faced various challenges, including stigma and prejudice. However, moments like this show that Muslims in America are not only surviving, but also thriving and increasingly daring to show their identity. Many people who witnessed firsthand how Muslims worship peacefully in downtown New York were amazed. They saw Islam not as something foreign, but as part of the diversity that has long been the foundation of the United States. A Muslim activist in New York said, "In the past, many Muslims were afraid to show their identity. But now, with events like this, we are more convinced that Islam has a place in America. We are part of this society, and we have the right to practice our religion in peace." Not only in terms of numbers, Islam in America is also growing in various aspects. More and more mosques are being built. More and more Muslims are getting involved in politics, business, education, and various other fields. In fact, the number of converts continues to increase, showing that many people are interested in understanding Islam more deeply. The moment of the Tarawih prayer in New York is real proof that Islam can live side by side with American culture and society. This is not just a worship event, but also a historic event that confirms that Islam continues to grow and develop in a country that upholds religious freedom. The success of the Tarawih prayer event in New York City also shows that Islam in America is no longer just a hidden minority, but an active, organized community that has a voice in the social and political life of this country. Many Muslim figures in America see this moment as a major step in building a better understanding of Islam. They hope that more religious events can be held openly so that the wider community can see Islam from a more positive perspective. On social media, many netizens expressed their amazement at this extraordinary sight. Some even admitted that they began to be interested in learning more about Islam after seeing how Muslims worship peacefully and orderly in the middle of a busy metropolitan city. A convert named Andrew said that he became more convinced of his decision to convert to Islam after seeing how thousands of Muslims gathered and worshiped together so neatly and solemnly. I was moved to see how they prayed in such orderly rows without anyone needing to order or organize them one by one. This shows how Islam is a religion that teaches discipline and togetherness, he said. The impact of this event was not only felt in New York, but also in various Muslim communities throughout the United States. Many mosques and Islamic organizations felt increasingly motivated to hold similar events in other cities. In fact, some religious leaders from other communities have also expressed their appreciation for how Muslims have managed to create a peaceful and harmonious atmosphere in the middle of a city known for its busyness. A Christian pastor from New York said, "I see this as a great example of how religious diversity can coexist. If the Muslim community can worship peacefully in the middle of a big city like New York, it's a sign that we can all live together with respect." Now, many are wondering, will this become an annual tradition in New York? Will other big cities in America follow suit? What is clear is that this moment has become evidence that Islam is growing in the United States and is increasingly accepted as part of social life in the country. For American Muslims, this is not just a Tarawih prayer, but also a symbol of awakening and recognition. Islam continues to grow, and with more support and better understanding, the future of Muslims in America looks brighter. With the increasing attention to Islam in America, many Muslim communities have begun to dare to be more active in various fields, both in the social, political, and economic worlds. Muslim leaders in America see this moment as a golden opportunity to continue to build an image of Islam that is peaceful, inclusive, and makes a positive contribution to the wider community. Not only that, this Tarawih prayer event also opens the door to better interfaith dialogue. Many leaders from various other religions see it as an opportunity to better understand Islam and establish closer relationships with the Muslim community. A rabbi from the Jewish community in New York said, "I feel inspired to see how Muslims can worship so peacefully and orderly in the middle of such a busy city. This is proof that religion can be a unifying tool, not a divisive one." From a political perspective, leaders and public officials have also begun to see that the Muslim community in America has an increasing influence. Their participation in various aspects of community life, including elections and public policy, is increasingly visible. Many political analysts argue that increasing Muslim involvement in American social and political life could bring about major changes in the future. They are no longer a group that is silent and receives negative stigma, but are now an active part in building the country. Meanwhile, among the younger generation of American Muslims, moments like this are an inspiration in themselves. Many of them who previously felt inferior or afraid to show their Islamic identity now feel more confident and proud to be Muslims. A Muslim student in New York said, "In the past, I often felt like I had to hide my identity as a Muslim because I was afraid of being discriminated against. But after seeing events like this, I feel prouder and more confident that we have a place in this country. With increasing support from various parties, great hope arises that events like this can be the beginning of a bigger tradition in the future." Many Muslim communities in other big cities are starting to consider holding similar events as a form of expression of their faith, as well as a peaceful dawah event. The success of the Tarawih prayer in New York is proof that Islam is not a threat to America, but rather part of the diversity that enriches this country. With a spirit of togetherness and tolerance growing stronger, Muslims in America now have greater hope for a brighter future. This year's Ramadan in New York City is very different from previous years. The number of people attending congregational prayers, including Tarawih, has increased drastically, creating an extraordinary atmosphere amidst the hustle and bustle of the city. Thousands of Muslims gathered solemnly, filling the streets of Manhattan with the recitation of the holy verses of the Quran echoing between the skyscrapers. What's more interesting, it was not only Muslims who attended this historic moment. Many non-Muslims also watched the worship process with curiosity and awe. They were amazed at how thousands of people could line up neatly, prostrate, and pray in perfect harmony, without the need for individual instructions. A New Yorker named David expressed his amazement. "I've never seen anything like this before. So many people gathered, but it was so orderly and peaceful. It really changed my perspective on Islam." Many of those who previously did not know about Islam began to be interested in learning more about it. Some even said that the experience of seeing the Tarawih prayer in person gave them a new perspective on the peace and togetherness of Islam. With this grand Tarawih prayer in New York City, the development of Islam in the United States is increasingly visible. This event is not only a place of worship, but also a symbol of unity, tolerance, and diversity that is increasingly accepted in society. Could this be the beginning of a new era for Muslims in America? Only time will tell. What is clear is that that night in New York, Islam showed its peaceful and beautiful face to the world. After that historic night, its impact continued to be felt in various levels of society. Media coverage of the Tarawih prayer in the heart of New York City has spread, not only in the United States, but also in various countries. Many see this as clear evidence that Islam is increasingly being accepted in a land known for its diversity and religious freedom. On social media, videos and photos of the event went viral. Thousands of comments emerged, most expressing admiration for the order and peace seen during the Tarawih prayer. One Twitter user wrote, "I'm not Muslim, but seeing this touched me. Islam is truly a religion of peace and discipline." Not only that, some non-Muslims who witnessed it even expressed interest in learning more about Islam. Several local Islamic organizations reported an increase in the number of people coming to ask questions and discuss Islamic teachings. A woman named Emily, who previously did not have a strong religious background, shared her experience after seeing the Tarawih prayer in Times Square. "I always thought that religion was just something rigid and full of rules. But that night I saw something different, a community united in peace. I wanted to know more," she said. Meanwhile, the Muslim community in the United States is feeling more confident in expressing their identity in public. Where previously there were concerns about how they would be received, they now see a lot of support and curiosity from the wider community. Islamic community leaders in New York are also increasingly active in building interfaith dialogue. They hope that this moment will not only be a memorable event, but also a first step towards deeper understanding between various groups in America. With this increasing openness, is it possible that we will see more similar events in other major cities around the world? Is this the beginning of a new era for Muslims in Western countries? What is certain is that that night in New York, Islam sent a powerful message, that it is a religion of peace, togetherness, and unity. The event of Tarawih prayers in the heart of New York City has become a symbol of change and wider acceptance of Islam in the United States. This is not just about a night of worship, but about how the Muslim community shows their presence in peace and togetherness. The world witnessed how thousands of people gathered in an orderly manner, without the need for special commands, without any commotion, with only one purpose: to worship Allah. This moment not only inspired Muslims, but also opened the eyes of many who previously had misunderstandings about Islam. Despite the challenges and skepticism from some, it is undeniable that this moment has brought about positive change. The presence of Muslims in America can no longer be ignored, and the peaceful values of Islam are becoming more widely known. With more events like this, the hope for a more tolerant and harmonious world is becoming more real. Perhaps this is the first step towards a more inclusive society, where everyone can practice their faith freely without fear or pressure. Finally, Ramadan in New York this year has taught us that Islam is not only about worship, but also about unity, peace, and togetherness. And who knows, maybe in the future, Scenes like this will become commonplace in various major cities around the world. May this moment inspire us all to continue to spread goodness, maintain brotherhood, and strengthen tolerance between religious communities. Ramadan is not only about holding back hunger and thirst, but also about how we can become better human beings. Friends of the Islamic faith who are blessed by Allah, I hope this video is useful and see you in our next video.